Shalom from somewhere in central Israel. My name is Shani Ferguson. We're here today in a village and we're discussing ways that we can help some of these areas that are really close to the border of Palestinian-controlled areas. Most people think that the dangerous areas are up north near Lebanon or down south near Gaza or on the border of Jordan, but actually in central Israel, there are so many towns and villages that are just a kilometer or two from border towns that are controlled by Palestinian Authority that are full of terrorists. In fact, during this war, these areas have been infiltrated or attempted infiltrations every single day since the beginning of the war. Somewhere along these borders, either illegal workers are trying to get in and find themselves a job, or terrorists are trying to get in. In fact, they just arrested a bunch of people in a brand new mall that is in the Tel Aviv area, and they found dozens of Palestinians who had come in and gotten jobs there with fake IDs. This is a complete threat to our security, especially considering the homes that they go back to and the culture they go back to that preaches the death of our entire nation. In the meantime, Israel has been busy, if you can call it that, for the last week plus burying hostages. It's been less in the news because the living hostages are obviously more of a celebratory thing to see them return, but it has been very heavy in the country, receiving so many hostages in caskets, and the families finally getting the confirmation they've been waiting for a year and a half to learn if their family member was alive or murdered in captivity. And of course, the hardest ones were the Bibas family, because it's the first time that we've had hostages returned that were babies and not adults. And I think you were probably exposed to some of the celebratory parade that Hamas put on in returning those caskets, and the insulting nature in which they put them in caskets, locked the caskets, and didn't give us the key. And then we had to scan them to make sure they weren't booby-trapped. And then, of course, they gave us the wrong body. Instead of Shiri Bibas, gave us someone else. Nobody actually knows who that other person was. I haven't heard anybody actually asking who that was. All those people that purport to really care about Palestinians, nobody in Gaza asked who it was, which just shows their lack of care for individual life. Something that Israel really, really holds dearly is the sacred nature of life. In fact, one of the arguments that are being had right now is, why does Israel keep terrorists alive when they've been convicted of mass murder? It really only puts a target on our backs to be kidnapped so that Hamas can then negotiate for more release of terrorists. If Israel were to have the death penalty for terrorists, then it would put Israelis at less risk of being kidnapped for a hostage exchange. In the meantime, the hostages that have been returned have been going through medical rehabilitation and psychological, obviously, rehabilitation. Some of them went and visited Trump yesterday in the White House, which Israelis are they're very happy this happened, and they're very critical of the fact that Netanyahu hasn't met with them and that Trump took the time to meet with them. And Trump was properly mortified by their stories and issued a very clear threat to Hamas. One of the hostages that visited Trump in the Oval Office was Eli Sharabi. His story is harrowing and difficult. And if you haven't had a chance to see our video that we did in Be'eri, you can go to wearewitnesses.com and see the video. We actually visited his house when nobody knew where he was. His family had been murdered, we knew that, but he had disappeared. And at the time that we made the video, nobody had seen him in captivity. So we are overjoyed to see him come home. Difficult to see him come home to such an empty home. And in the meantime, Trump has given the green light for Israel to completely flatten anything and everything in Gaza, obviously knowing that to us, having hostages in Gaza makes it virtually impossible for us to fight focused and eliminate Hamas. But we are thankful that there is an ally in the White House for Israel who is going to let us do what we need to do and is giving us free rein to make decisions on the ground for our country. That is definitely not something that we've had since the beginning of the war. I believe this war would have looked different if we had had that free reign the entire time, but I am thankful that we finally do have that now. So I appreciate you guys' continued prayers for the release of every single hostage. Obviously, Hamas does not want to release these hostages because they realize that's the only leverage they have at this point. Israel could very, very quickly destroy a lot of places completely in Gaza. And so our prayer is for the release of the hostages and the release of those who are in Gaza who want to live and want to leave and find new life outside of Gaza, that they will have the opportunity to do that, and the complete bringing of justice for all who are guilty for this terrible war. Until next time, I'm Shani Ferguson.